Okay, welcome to lesson 27. We will continue with for loop. So let's start with an example. So let's say we have this list 10, 20, 26, 50, 30, and minus 5. 4. So I told you can use something else instead of I. So let's have ELE, short for element, in range from 0 until len of x. And here we have a condition if x ELE. So ELE refers to the index. Mod 2 equals 0. If this is true, so I want to increase the value of that element by 1. Equals x ELE plus 1. If the condition is true. Else, so remember you don't write any condition next to else. I want to decrease the value of that element by 1. ELE equals x ELE minus 1. Now let's see what's happening here. So here we have x ELE mod 2 equals 0. It means if the element is an even number, increase its value by 1, otherwise decrease the value by 1. So we have x 0, which is 10 here. Let me write the indexes 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So in total we have 6 elements. x0, and this 0 is the index, because we are using range function. 0, 6, the length of the list. So x0 is 10. So 10 mod 2 equals 0. Is it true? Yes, this one is true. It means 10 is an even element, even number. So I increase the value of that element by 1. So 10 becomes 11. So no need to go to else, because we have if-else structure. If is true, no need to go to else. But if this one is false, if this condition is false, you go to else. Now we go back to for loop. So remember, whatever you have here is the body of for loop. So ELE becomes 1. So we are talking about 20. So 20 mod 2 equals 0. Is it true? Yes, this one is true. So again, we have to increase its value by 1. So it becomes 21. So as a note for you, all lists are mutable. So it means you can change or modify the list. So ELE becomes 2. We have 26 at position 2. So here this one is true. So I increase its value, it becomes 27. So we have the same thing for 50. It becomes 51. Now ELE becomes 4. So let me write this one, and ELE becomes 4, which is 3. So 3 mod 2 equals 0. Is it true? Definitely not. So we go to else. So we decrease the value of this element. It becomes 2 and minus 5. So is it true? This one is not true. So you have to decrease. So you decrease, it becomes minus 6. Now suppose you have a print function after for loop. So what do you think? What is the output? Now we want to print the whole list. Now you have 11, 21, 27, 51, 2, and minus 6. So you have to print the updated list. So you might ask, is it always necessary to use for loop with a sequence, a list, a string, a tuple? And the answer is no. It's not necessary to use for loop with a sequence. You can print a bunch of numbers using for loop without any sequence. So no need to iterate through something all the time. So we can use for loop without any sequence. So let's have a simple example. Sum of integers from 1 to 10. So both of them inclusive. Let me mention it here. So we don't have any sequence here. We don't have any list, any string. So let's solve this example. For, let's say x is just a variable. As I told you, it can be any variable, any name. For x in range. So it says from 1 to 10. So both of them inclusive. What is the lower limit? 1, it's obvious. What about the upper limit? Should I write 10? If you write 10, number 10 will be exclusive. So it should be 10 plus 1, which is 11. So whenever we have sum, we need an empty container or the empty box T with nothing inside. So T equals 0. And then T plus equal X. And you can print the value of T at the end. So what about these numbers here? So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 10. So 11 is not included, not included. Now let's have something else. For I in, so as I told you, no need to use range function. If you want to iterate through a list, you can have a variable and the name of the list. So for I in 2, 5, 7, 11, 100, minus 2, 0. And then print I. So is it valid to have a list with for loop in this line? Is it valid? It's totally fine. So you can have something like this: for I in and the list. So this time, instead of using the name of the list, we are using the list itself. And then print I, you will print these numbers here. Okay, let's do a comparison between while loop and for loop. So here's our example. Display numbers from 10 to 25. Let me mention inclusive. So from 10 up to 25, everything. So first, using for loop. For, let's say n, lowercase n, in range. So from 10 to 25, both inclusive. So you don't write 25 as the upper limit. You have to write 26, 25 plus 1. And then print n. So using for loop, displaying numbers from 10 to 25. What about while loop? So I have to write something equivalent to the for loop. So you want to display something, basically we are counting numbers from 10 to 25. So we have this famous variable counter. Counter equals 10. Starting value, right? While. So at some point we have to terminate the while loop. So we have to write a condition here to terminate the while loop. So what is that condition? So if counter becomes 26, terminate the while loop. Do not enter the while loop. Don't go inside the while loop. So counter less than or equal to, is it 25? Yes, 25. Print counter. But wait, if you print counter and go back, counter is 10. So it is always 10. So we have to avoid infinite loop by updating the value of counter in each iteration. Counter plus equal 1. So counter becomes 11, 12, 13. Counter becomes 26 at some point. So 26 is not less than or equal to 25. So we exit. Or we don't enter this part of while loop. So these two are equivalent. So counting from 10 to 25 using for loop and while loop. So let's finish the lesson here. Next time we will discuss range function with the third variable, the third parameter, let's say, which is step size. So as usual, take care and bye-bye.